All right. Well, welcome everybody to to Tenderness. I add my action, illness, disability, and poetry with Steffi Tad-y, Kess Mohammadi, and Jody Chan, and we're so excited to welcome them. My name is Jackie Hoffer. I use they them pronouns, and I work for Massy Art Society as the events and admin coordinator. I'm a fourth generation settler of mixed German, Mennonite, and Irish ancestry. The family names that I descend from are the Hofferts and the Yankees, as well as the Peters and the Sullivans. My family is spread across the country, across Treaty 4 territory, Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territory in Calgary, but I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which Massy Arts operates is the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. There is always a tension, I feel, whenever a settler, especially a white settler, gives a land acknowledgement. It can feel really performative, and I've learned from Indigenous people in my life that the way through that feeling of performativity is through relationships and action. So there's this organization called Nikanagana that I take part in, which is an Anishinaabe word for we're all related. And they have a Patreon, which is a low barrier way of redistributing money. So if you look, I'll put it into the chat, but if you look up patreon.com/pay your rent, it's a way to set up a monthly donation and redistribute money from settlers to Indigenous folks across the country. And that goes to people with every kind of project from groceries and rent to small organizations and other bigger projects. Specifically, we're here at Massy Arts Society, which is a community hub dedicated to supporting the practices of Indigenous and over-excluded artists. And our programming is extensive in its multiple forms. We've got open talks, debates, book launches, art shows, performances, concerts, fairs, and others. And to keep up to date with us, I strongly recommend you follow us on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. And ideally sign up for our newsletter, and I'll also put that into the chat. So that's it for me. We're gonna hear tonight from Jody, then Kess, then Steffi, and then we'll have a little Q&A. And so I just want to thank everyone again for being here. And I'm gonna introduce Jody now. I just want to get my screens right. There we go. So Jody Chan is a writer, drummer, therapist, and organizer based in Toronto. Their writing explores themes of home, belonging, kinship, queerness, and madness disability. They are the author of Haunt by Damaged Goods Press, All Our Futures, Pank, and Sick, Black Lawrence Press, winner of the 2018 St. Lawrence Book Award and the 2021 Trillium Award for Poetry. They are also a performing member of the Raging Asian Women Taiko Drummers, RAW, and their work has received fellowships and support from VONA, Tin House, Feminist Art Collective, Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, and the Canada Council for the Arts. Jody, take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And thank you to Steffi and Kess and to everyone here. Yeah, I'm really so moved to be here with you all tonight. I'm going to do a couple of techie things, so give me just 1 second. I'm going to share my screen, but also drop a link in the chat, which has a document that you can use to follow along with, if that helps for you. Give me 1 second. Okay, just wanted to situate myself also for a second as I'm dragging my little Zoom window around, which you can't see me doing. But I'm joining tonight from my very cold, chilly room in Toronto, which is Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe, in Wendat land, in the land of many peoples. And yeah, thinking today of decolonization on all lands from Turtle Island to Palestine. And in that spirit, wanted to start with this poem after Lucille Clifton, just thinking of tenderness and action and the waters, and maybe how poetry can move us to that. Also, please bear with me as I like bend my neck around to read this poem, which I made in the shape of a circle to torment myself with. Center. May you enter with care wherever your breath lands. May you not bear this tenderness alone. Whenever the light catches in you, may the future bend down to hold you. As the waters draw forth your dead, like bruises, your newborn light, your shadow huddled by the window. May you meet the ocean with memory. May language move you to action. May all the locked doors sing inside you. May all the locked doors sing inside you. May language move you to action. May you meet the ocean with memory. Your shadow huddled by the window, like bruises, your newborn light. As the waters draw forth your dead, may the future bend down to hold you. Whenever the light catches in you, may you not bear this tenderness alone. Wherever your breath lands, may you enter with care. And this next poem comes from a long multi-year exchange with a friend of mine who's a poet, and yeah, about lots of different things, about queerness and desire and puppies and trees. And yeah, ended up being a space where I really could access like a lot of the playfulness and tenderness that sometimes is hard to access just kind of writing for myself or writing to myself. We could kind of be held in that container of this like intimacy and queer friendship. It's called Holding the Current. You called and mapped the madness. All my splinters seeking harbor in a long walk, a nested palm, a tree-lined street perhaps, or the poem pulp time makes of even my sharpest days. For so long I've surveyed the same landscape inside and out, traveled the same 10 minutes of salt-speckled sidewalk 3 times a day toward anything but home, my innermost selves, young and ageless, reaching for grace. I ran. I romanced the finger pointing to injustice, that blue, unruly diorama of things I could be doing instead. You know the kind. Workshop agendas to invent, tiny apartments to furnish, etc. A whole language for shrillness. My Capricorn moon, a friend tells me, always trying to sturdy, to grow something that lasts. Joy Harjo says, all poets understand the final uselessness of words. Our conversations, on the other hand, are the river's current, swirling heat for miles, blotting our feet's brief history from the land. And yet no other place for us to meet, the ecstasy of naming something what it is. Revolution, half arrival, a constant movement only momentarily grasped. Araceli Girmay writes, every inch of me is animal, every inch of me is earth. Someday soon, our bodies will diffuse to dirt. It's not that I don't believe in forever. I just can't decide if I want everything or nothing to stay the same. All this to say, today I left my old notebooks on the shelf. I'm feeling in primary colors again. Come over for dinner. I'll be different by the time you get here. And then I'll read 2 more pieces that are going to flow from one kind of straight into the other. The first one is like a part of an essay or messay, as my friend calls it, of just like a kind of dump of a lot of different kinds of things. The full version kind of touches on like climate grief, disability, hybridity, mermaids, yeah, a lot of different things. And this one is kind of just an extracted kind of condensed version for tonight. And it'll kind of go into another piece, which is a cento. So cento, sorry, I never actually know how to pronounce that, which means that it's composed of lines from other writers, mostly other poets. And that one is an audio piece, and I haven't figured out how to do it on Zoom live in a way where I can read it and not kind of be drowned out by like a background track. But I've tried it live in person. So tonight I'm just gonna hit play on a button and it's gonna play an audio for you. So yeah, so you'll know when we get there. Echo chamber. Before my breath was mine, it was my mother's. Her echo and pulse, her misfired intentions, her shrink-wrapped future. So begin again, with carrots and celery, pruned to matchsticks, protected by a sheet of plastic. Rented sound system straining against July heat. Staccato arrival of street medics from across Toronto. We distribute zines, instructionals pressed inside. How to flush the eyes of tear gas, how to dress a wound or loosen shock. Christie pits, subway rumble, the constant itch of a city sound crowding in. Forests flame in Quebec, and here the skies stain all summer. Drone of smog and a charred blue. I learned that wildfire smoke and COVID both target the respiratory cilia. Tiny lung hairs mobilizing, essential hum, waving mucus upward to the throat. If the cilia get damaged, mucus collects, lungs clench, eventually a drowning. Humidity erodes a sense of self. Dulcet din of splash pads and swimming pools in public parks, shelters packed to spill, condos cool and empty above our heads. By 2050, this will happen 5 times more often. During heat waves, sweat blurs the day's edges. 2 screens in the Mind's Theater, 2 clotted streams of imagery, drought, blaze, storm, deluge, their potentials, their destructions, diametric. Then again, grief and anger are not binaries. Their meanings do not fix. Neither do excess and lack, nor colors. The skies today burning red, orange, yellow, even green. Mucus trapping bacteria and virus, then expelled, iridescent in the sink. Thick fluid which, when amassed in the lungs, causes inflammation, hushes the breath. Danger and defense, a continuous loop. All night I wheeze into the silence. The hours a bowl of congealed blue. Absence of witness, of the solicitous mother dotting vapor rub on the throat. She too knew asthma, solitary wakefulness, the underside of illness. Similarities I assemble and document, though I know I am not her. Mia Mingus on being queer, Korean, adoptee, and disabled in 2018. I am part of different diasporas, and each one pulls at me constantly, and each one holds that constant refrain. I am, but I'm not. I am, but I'm not. Each utterance an island, a node of want. When asked why she writes fables, Kaming Chang responds, so much of queerness is about making your own myths, inventing your own future and past, forging your own new lineages. In my experience, queerness has also been against binaries, about beaches, about burying our dead, against private property, about downtown slender scrawl of alleys, about clean drinking water, about housing, about parking lot murals, about pain, about music, about illness, about tongues, about fingers, about fluidity and heat. At some point, the thumb of a myth begins to press on belief. Symbols accrue a percussive force, as material as sweat-chafed skin, stone sluiced in cold water. Cue viral videos, ice poured over another's head. Accusations of idealism, naivete, get out of your own echo chamber. What is the dew point at which dreams dampen? I pocket the names of everyone I love, each one a pane of glass, rubbed dry in my palms. Preparing for an action targeting the offices of various banks investing in fossil fuels, we map the route, wending through the financial districts, churning high-rises, scarlet pen marks slapping the foam, like a fish's tail or a parent's hand. I find a tactile pleasure in the aesthetics of street medics, the fanny packs and bikes, the plastic water bottles, the brightly marked sleeves like red tulips, moving footnotes on the margins of action, guarding the edges of an alternative world. Desire, a system of resonance. Lychees peeled in a porcelain bowl, a palm skimming the inside of my thigh. Stooping to dab the soil from her grave, its silence falling open, pigment shivering on the many tongues of a dandelion. Desire orienting me always to queerness, pronouns orienting me always to loss. In other words, to crescendo past the parameters of normalcy, to watch the river carry one's language out and out beyond touch. Look at that sky, we begin our sentences now, then end saturated in some uncommon hue. Yet to imagine a self as riddled by impediment, as familiar with shame, who might survive inside that chromatic future, its banality of fire, flood, and storm. Consider also my friends raising their first child, cooking rice, letting them pick out socks, rinsing them in attention's most harmonic light, yielding and without resentment, some fossilized image of childhood rupturing inside me. Though how might one make a life, should they inherit only the memory of reds and blues and much they would not have chosen to? That if I have a child, they will have survived my life, my mother's. That before I was born, I was inoculated to water, through water, the sonorous tide of my mother's breath, echoes thrumming through fluid and skin, from beyond and beyond, and the world was all touch and vibrations receding from a shore. And water's incessant hum, through ocean and rain and cloud and pond and sea and swamp, and river and stream, and creek and fog and lake, and sound and mist, in and out of each other's bodies, stripped of any need for a singular sufficiency. In Rehearsals for Living, Leanne Simpson writes, "The absence of hope is a beautiful catalyst. Low pressure system, then the storm. If I may think of the future, my future, our futures, not as a threat of absence, but a change of form." The poet Jenny Shea, "The dead do not end, they grow denser." But there I go again, lurching ahead of time, of the protests flowing through the streets. History snarls anyway at the door. Inside, sliced honeydew scraped clean of seeds, skin tautened not by fish scale or face mask or fever, but by laughter, its diatonic river. And why not waver? And why not sing?
At the end of the world, let there be you, saint of the blue peaks by the ocean where we began, a trail of hands, narrating in the context of ache or tomorrow, crowned with August and salt. I wake in a puddle of ghosts. I hunt the wilderness in myself. These ever-blooming wounds, the damp and swelling mud, blue hyacinths, rustle nude inside the blue water, the way old grief is gentle. To answer your question, I refuse. History is a song, new name for a myth already lived in. The thought of losing sight of shore you know no one can prepare for. Hair falling in torrents, roses of lips, the plummeted paper planes, the angry weather. There is no prayer or pill for this. Ocean, don't be afraid. Ocean, don't be afraid. Ocean, don't be afraid. Ocean, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Ocean, don't be afraid. Ocean, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Ocean, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Alive means you swallow each day like a stone. I too am built out of a question about the sky. If language can hybrida, anemone, ever be enough to repair, begin again, where everything you've lost is washed ashore. I'm building the boat. I believe I exist, a historian of my own silence. Think of a needle dropped into the sea, the moon, a wound on the lake, our footprints to not follow. If you don't have blood on your hands, by the end of this, you weren't listening. If you don't have blood on your hands, if you don't have blood on your hands, if you don't have blood on your hands, you weren't listening. By the end of this, you weren't listening. If you don't have blood, if you don't have blood on your hands, if you don't have by the end of this, you weren't listening. By the end of this, you weren't listening. Inside every world, there is another world trying to get out. Warm and blood close, sunglass breaking. Like the light, I am scattered, and what is left is only water.
Thank you, everyone. I am so sorry I went a little bit over my time. Steffi and Kess, I'm so excited for your readings. I'll pass it back to you, Jackie, I think.
Thank you so much. Okay. Moving on to Kess Mohammadi. Kess is a queer Iranian-born, Toronto-based poet, writer, and translator. They were shortlisted for the 2021 Austin Clarke Poetry Prize, 2022's ARC Poem of the Year Award, the Malahat Review's 2023 Open Season Awards for Poetry, and they are the winner of the 2021 Vallum Poetry Prize. They are the author of 4 poetry chapbooks and 3 translated poetry chapbooks. They've released 2 full-length collections of poetry with Gordon Hill Press. Their first full-length collaborative poetry manuscript, G, is forthcoming with Palimpsest Press, Fall 2023, and their full-length collection of experimental dream poems, Daffodils, is forthcoming with Pamenar Press, Fall 2023. Welcome, Kess.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to get right to it because I want to say a few things about them and what I'm going to read, which is it's kind of strange because my book G, or as we say Kha, it's G is not Kha, it's just in the premise that we made for the book. The book is supposed to be called Kha. It's out and I've launched it and I read from it, but for what we're doing today, I thought I would read a section of a long poem, which I write during pretty much the worst let's call them movements towards an mental illness episodes. And during those times, there's very few things that can keep my attention. There's very few things I can do to keep. But what I've seen helps me a lot is just to tether myself to language, even if it doesn't make sense really. But so what I do is I know I'm not going to understand the things that I read when I'm on those times. So I, on purpose, read much faster than I usually do. Like, let's say 100 or 150 pages in a half hour. And I write down these ethereal misinterpretations, misquotations, all these, or when I misread words or phrases, simple things as something insane, and I log them down. And when I'm feeling better every 2, 3, 4 weeks, I gather these pretty much always very lengthy logs and I make poetry with them. And the piece that I'm reading from you today has 35 books embedded in it and about 11 albums, but I have lost the exact log of which pages have more. This list that I am telling you is what I'm sure is in it. The rest I'm unsure what else is in. But the piece that I'm going to read from you has embedded interpretations, misinterpretations, misquotations of James Morier's Haji Baba of Isfahan, Karl Marx's Das Kapital, Volume 1, Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, Freud's Essentials of Psychoanalysis, Brandon Shimoda's Hydra Medusa, Moheb Suleiman's Holmes, Ralph Gustafson's Ixion's Wheel, Holderin's Essays and Letters on Theory, Herbert Marcuse's The Aesthetic Dimension, Danielle Dutton's Sprawl, Bob Kaufman's Collected Poems, Arthur Kaisakian's Book of Redacted Poems, and the following albums, which are To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar, To Be Kind by Swans, Coin Coin Chapter 4 by Matana Roberts, and Amnesiac by Radiohead. This is called Bedfruit. I start with the shape-filled first night madness at the corner of the bus making first dice to some guy. Tongue deep in peach sap, as if oysters, as if dusk, as if bedfruit, where from afar the elderly lend wrinkles to Lake Ontario. And us a we, an I filled with third voices, but who was the third one weeping? At the Mosque of Irony and Theory Capital, Insurrection Day and Reflection, Mother Tongue, retroflex D on the downbeat as whole notes like down, down, down. What vile, what villainy, which candlelight, sinking in syllables on Execution Day counted in women, waiting, women hanging, women serenaded by the coupon. Sugar, knocking at the rim of a cold cup of chai before the false bottom drops, sinking in syllable rhythm. Joe says a birch is reverse lightning. Well, Joe says a lot of things when prices go up. Train tracks from one bank of the subway to another. The sentence drops at the center. Limbs, lubricated and loving limbs, no body in them. Cold walls holding colder material. I'm tired, if poetry is tired. I'm morsel by morsel this clarity. I'm remembrance causing rupture. I'm tiptoes and sawdust slotted into its many grooves to plow. After years of quake, sluice, and tumor, after Lazarus, after 4:30 p.m., after reading out loud that collapsed sentence, after her dusty Russian, wish you could honeypot the infected iconography, wish you could insects on checkerboard staggered across open doors, wish you could and a baby's cry letting attend our wedding, wish you who sang codes across prison bars and bleed cerebral marble slab floor to set translateral stability, wish verging on fertility, chug chug unreachable city, wish curried cause, wish, and you who live abroad poetry laced with pure genre, somewhere further down the slippery, where poetry is a genre, and false bottoms in the bathhouse, and the sentence collapsed mid-speech, bedbug bites, and the elderly lending wrinkles to Lake Ontario, wish. I start the sentence with only its shape. I left the body alone, afflicted with bisexual mood light. I asked the dance floor what it dances to, clawing at plastic to imbue with song just one apple amid the Dutch still life. Elder queer sigh, alone in his AIDS outfit, and here, amid New Draft 1, hometown asphalt, with teaspoons floating at the rim of our cup of chai, urban salt, doomsday pepper, a becoming by typo. In the end, I refuse the hermetic text, making eyes so fast that it is almost speech, and speech again batter me. Before bread, Kuleshov stare at the cake and wait for its revolution eaters. In the end, I said, find us this common poverty. In the end, I said, this is the strongest voting party, and I said this living in a living room with living egotism. A split intuition be grinding eyelids before the end, where I said the learned of sexual intuition unwalk their certainties, tempered with facsimile and legally acting against the billowing of psychoanalysis. The learned of the screen are my trend now, licking charcoal ice cream off of hers and hers menstruation cups, disturbing the perennial discourse. In the end, I said half of our waking life is to unwalk the ejaculation of our mythos, rejection of the queued up songs for menopause, penitent, pedestrian, pedestal. Something has to spin to find our true north, and something does. Before it stops, all of a sudden, this horizontal occasion to end world hunger, charging tree branches with all the might of walnut, that PNG, reading hunger through holy dyslexia. This poem is about me the same way the word is about 3/4 through the line. In the end, I say we are heading towards a jump cut. In the end, I say fangs poison outward. In the end, he grew hands for fun. Such high wages for war, down in the alleyway, gunshot. In the end, friend comfort like raised limbs in summer. The bus is crowded is my party slogan, from orange segment to receptionist's mouth. This peeled immensity perfected. In the end, we have lips for AI conjured incantations propulsed to create each moment from behind the eyelid fugue, color fields in color cone cell, nerve mycelium like speech again, like a spore of light spread muscle deep again. In the end, I'm losing to my dreams, false textures of civilization dreaming up a new guise. Just another day in July, input justice. What does reality owe to the carnal? In the end, I say having our feelings met is an aperitif you can only find in museum. That God rays of light in hanged paintings, but God is the material of another epoch. Downstream, a purely accusative light with dribbling consonants across a conceptual poem like and drums across my heartbeat, side-chained to the clatter of my teeth like lily of the valley blight. The torn up petal no fjord can partition, waves crash, soda stream, and now speech again, cut in the trade embargo. The tree named us in return, flashing red lights through bent limbs of iron, flashing blue lights through bent limbs of wood. In the end, I exhaled this noise, scratching at our cochlea. In the end, I said I'm only aroused by low-income housing. This moon stretched midnight and floating archipelagos of mood lighting, washing over reed fields, sprayed crimson with blood, reed players with teeth gaped in a decade's practice, painted before harvest. The way fish learn, the way deer learn, the way trash learns the will and the Tao. And speech again, bringing along its +1, severe persevere. Do I? There, this new language to lick me with eyes closed. Let's both grow as people so we don't have to grow the numbers this quarter. Let's break with harmony and speak with 1%er words in this 20%er lane. In the end, it is 3, morning. In the end, it is 4, early to break with harmony and spill. It's always been women on either side of this speech, and speech again slapped gore on the car for the wedding ride to the countryside. He drove, red-pilled with man's breath, but a page can always flip prematurely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kess. Yes, mesmerizing. Just wanted to share those links I promised to share from before. And also take an opportunity to, if you're in Vancouver, I know we have some signed copies of your book. You can come and get them at the bookstore or order them online. I just popped the link into the chat. Same, we also have at least one copy of Jody's book. I've also popped the link in the chat. And then here's the link for Steffi's as well. Okay. So on to Steffi. So born and raised in Manila, Philippines, Steffi Tad-y is a poet and writer based in the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations, also known as Vancouver, BC. Her chapbook of poems, Merienda, was published by Rahila's Ghost Press, RIP, was nominated for the 2021 bpNichol Chapbook Award. In 2022, she published her debut book of poetry, From the Shoreline, with Gordon Hill Press. Steffi's poems often reflect on kinship, diasporic geographies, and formations of the mind. Steffi, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I feel unbelievably lucky to share space with Kess and Massy Books and Jody. I would also just like to say hello from the other side of the world where it is 9:40 a.m. And so good morning. Today I will be reading 4 poems from my book called From the Shoreline, and we'll end with a draft from this new project I'm making called Notes from the Ward. So I just get to it. This poem is called Girl on Fire. In 2015, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1. Since then, my experience with the illness has changed, but I find that this poem still rings true to me. So, Girl on Fire. There is no thermometer for mania, yet I felt feverish. Everything glowed, nothing had a shadow. What faced me I touched like honeyed gold melting on my hands, and I could not keep up. All the stripping on the ground. Wearing a wetsuit from Valhalla, I spilled and spun in the underpass of sky trains until I tripped on concrete, islands of bruises forming on both my shins, silver coins I spent and overspent beyond my means, myself, an ambulance blaring into the emergency room, winter tires both cold and warm in January rain. So mental illness runs in my family, and what I found helpful was to have conversations with them on how to deal, but also like how to look at something that when I first experienced also came with judgment on my part that it's sort of a fault or a moral failure. This is called Flickering. I have an uncle whose name always comes up every time I am asked about my family's medical history. In the story my father tells me, my uncle would bolt out of bed after midnight and whisper to his siblings, I have the perfect plan on how to get to the moon. On the morning that followed, he landed his fist on their neighbor's cheek in a parking lot where young brown boys brandished their Bruce Lee moves. There in the Devil's Island, as it is called, he sustained an orbital fracture. Sometimes I picture this uncle alive, apparitions felt more than facts. He'd gorge on bellies of milkfish after a day of waiting, casting his lightweight rod into the sea. I picture him near the vast phosphorescence, one eye closed, the other squinting, impatient with a telescope, yet eager to point to the Big Dipper, Orion, Cassiopeia. With tattered medical records speaking out of his bag, we'd trade stories about the ward and drape them around our shoulders like a prayer. We would move on, ease touched where panic lives under the night sky. With a swig of San Miguel, we'd talk about punches thrown during Thrilla in Manila, and for the 1,000th time, after the most heated argument with the rest of the clan, resolve that Muhammad Ali is pound for pound the greatest, and in the quiet thereafter, there is breath. and the cadence of Ilonggo that raised me since childhood, he would say that just because our brains were on fire does not mean we were only made to burn things down. As he threw more wood into the heating pile, I hyper-focus on the silvery tips of his mustache to distract myself from the heave of my chest, children of regrets and what we believe we have torched with our words. From the shoreline, we would recount what we love. Here is some honey for the wound. Here are your butterflies. This poem is called Why Don't You Just Take Your Meds? I think there's such a rich conversation about taking meds in with mental illness, and I am in no way like, I hope this doesn't sound like an opinion, but more of just like someone's hanging thoughts about it. So it's called Why Don't You Just Take Your Meds? Of course, I chose the brain, a grandmother to hold by the arm at night as she goes to bed, right hand on her belly that must rise and fall, snoring even. Former gust of wind on my eyelash who watched me grow. Once outside her house by the street lamp, a dog on my left barked so loud I swerved and bumped my leg into a fire hydrant. I ran my hand over my leg and the bruise that was, and briefly checked my hip, the good one, when the doctor at Crosstown warned that the switch from quetiapine to lithium will, from the gut and heart, relay the risk of damage to the thyroid and kidneys. I'll just look for my last poem. This is called Notes from the Ward. In the face of a recurring illness, unpinnable and changing every second, my foremost worry was money and a future I can speak of. For 16 days and the price of an airline ticket from Manila to Queens, my mother and father paid me a visit until I was returned to the daughter they knew, meanwhile nursing the daughter before them. In the midst of delusions, too grand to stage even here on the page's boundless space. In my head, I was mother to a god, god to a mother, body belonging to men. The doctor reported, distorted, disheveled, desires taken to an extreme. In the lunchroom, my mother combs my hair, touches my hands. My father opens the Tupperware of fish stew and cake my cousin prepared just for me. And in an instant, and with so much gratitude, I have become the days I covet, the child in my dreams. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow. Yeah. So now if folks have questions, we can take them. You could maybe drop them into the chat, or you can deliver them yourself if you feel like it. Take a moment to gather your thoughts. We also don't have to do questions. And just do gratitude. Yeah. Maybe let's stop there then. Thank you so much, everybody. Jody, Kess, and Steffi, thank you so much for being here and for sharing this event with us. We're so grateful to you, and I hope everyone takes the opportunity to follow them and follow their work. Yeah, these beautiful thoughts coming in. Yeah. Yay. I wish everyone a wonderful rest of your morning, evening, potentially afternoon. Bye. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.